In America, we debate everything except capitalism. If there's an institution in your society that's above criticism, you're giving it a free pass to indulge all of its weaknesses and darker tendencies. The more successful capitalists are in cutting their wage costs, the less money workers will have to buy back what those same capitalists produce. It's a contradiction. The word collective is not so often used because it has been basically used by socialists and communists and has a different history. The word cooperative means the way the workplace itself is organized cooperatively, rather than in the conventional capitalistic hierarchical form. Moving to a cooperatively organized enterprise is one of the best ways to really do something about unequal distribution of wealth. If you lived with a roommate as unstable as capitalism. To cut 1930s jobless, FDR taxed poor and rich. Gov used money to hire many millions. Work then? Would now again? Why no debate on that? Socialism is a kind of yearning for a better life than what capitalism permits for most people. Socialist yearnings are as old as capitalism itself because they are its products. Greed is not the cause of capitalists' behavior, it is a quality they acquire in. Accommodating to and internalizing the requirements of competitive survival within the capitalist system. To achieve a society that exhibits liberty, equality, fraternity, and democracy, the object to change, first and foremost, is production. The impoverished families of the long term, unemployed strained to the point of dysfunction, communities deprived of viable economies, interrupted educations, lost skills, these and many more results of. Capitalism's crisis will put difficult demands on governments for years. On the one hand, they will aggravate social problems that impose costs on governments. The capitalist organization of production must now be dissolved. Workers must become their own directors, receiving and distributing the surpluses they produce. They must become the collective. Decision-makers in productive enterprises, no longer the directed wage and salary. Receivers. The mass of people in our economic system are required to live with the consequences of the decisions made by the corporate leaderships, decisions for which they are excluded, legally and in practice. The capitalist workplace is one of the most profoundly undemocratic institutions on the face of the earth. Workers have no say over decisions affecting them. If workers sat on the board of directors of democratically operated self-managed enterprises, they wouldn't vote for the wildly unequal distribution of profits to benefit a few, and for cutbacks for the many. If workers become owners of a capitalist corporate enterprise, they have the right to elect as members of the board of directors persons other than themselves. They usually do that and leave the directing of the enterprise to those directors, much as non-worker shareholders typically do. It might be legally possible for worker owners to transform the enterprise so that they become not only owners, but also, collectively, directors. However, that has very rarely happened. In capitalism, as I have noted, productive workers add more value to the commodities produced in and sold by the enterprise than the value of their wages paid by the capitalist who hired them. That additional value or surplus is appropriated by the capitalists. What then is socialism? If socialism is to be a distinct economic system, then it must clearly differentiate itself from capitalism in terms of how surplus is produced and distributed. Marx's critique of capitalism offers a clue to the defining characteristic of socialism. In his suggestive references to associated workers and other images of workers having replaced capitalists as directors of productive enterprises. Shifting demand patterns that have so often provoked or worsened economic cycles and crises in capitalism. Inventors and innovators in a WSDE-based economic system would, like their counterparts in capitalist systems, face problems to solve and incentives to realize the production of new goods or services. Workers in WSDEs make their labor leisure choice together with and as part of their decisions about technological change. People, the great debate between capitalism and socialism, the debate that so many had declared finally resolved in capitalism's favor by the 1990s, turns out to have been a debate between private and state capitalism, greater economic and social equality, return to greater inequality. Our leaders keep saying phrases like, "Let the market decide," or "the market will get to the efficient outcome." Really, the market is a very flawed institution that does not deserve the nearly religious kind of endorsement of it that our leaders are eager to provide over and over again. The place where most adults spend most of their life is at work, and there is no democracy at work. By democratizing workplaces, worker co-ops can give shape to a real daily democracy on a society-wide basis. A cooperative enterprise is the key alternative to a traditional capitalist enterprise. Moving to a cooperatively organized enterprise is one of the best ways to really do something about unequal distribution of wealth. In America, we debate everything except capitalism. The capitalist workplace is one of the most profoundly undemocratic institutions on the face of the earth. Greed is not the cause of capitalists' behavior. It is a quality they acquire in, accommodating to the requirements of competitive survival. The more successful capitalists are in cutting their wage costs, the less money workers will have to buy back what those same capitalists produce. To achieve liberty, equality, fraternity, and democracy, the object to change first and foremost is production. The mass of people in our economic system are required to live with the consequences of decisions made by corporate leaderships, decisions for which they are excluded. If workers sat on the board of directors of democratically operated self-managed enterprises, they wouldn't vote for wildly unequal distribution of profits. What then is socialism? It must clearly differentiate itself from capitalism in terms of how surplus is produced and distributed. The capitalist organization of production must now be dissolved. Workers must become their own directors. Shifting demand patterns often provoke or worsen economic cycles and crises in capitalism. Workers in worker self-directed enterprises make labor-leisure choices, together as part of decisions about technological change. Focusing only on government is misdirection of anger. It leaves untouched the economic foundation we want to change. Students chained to student debt cannot possibly pay back. This system no longer works for them. The market is a very flawed institution that does not deserve a nearly religious endorsement. The idea that the private sector always knows best is a dogma, not an evidence-based conclusion. You cannot understand capitalism if you only study it during boom times. You must study its crises. Economics should be taught as one of the agonistic fields, contending ways of understanding. Capitalism creates persistent inequalities because of how it organizes ownership and control. Alternative enterprises must be built, not only debated in universities and cafes. When profits become an end in themselves, human needs become secondary. Economic literacy is essential for democratic participation. Policy proposals must confront the economic structure, not only redistribute its leftovers. The crisis of capitalism cannot be solved by the same forms of market adjustments that created it. We must teach the young that alternative economic organizations are possible and practical. The rhetoric of natural market outcomes hides choices made by institutions. We should be skeptical of claims that technology will automatically solve inequality. Economic education must be for everyone, not only specialists,